What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Ogre Boy, and I'm going to be doing this video that I've been planning for a few months now that I'm calling the Demonic Trio. Over this year, I've reviewed all of the Exorcist movies, all the Conjuring movies, and all the Paranormal Activity movies, so I thought I'd do an ultimate ranking where I put all three franchises together and rank the 20 movies that have been released from them and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and get going. I want to try to make this video as quick as I can. A lot of them I don't even really remember very well because I'm not a big fan of two of the franchises in particular, especially The Exorcist. So I'm just gonna go through them as quick as I can and everything, and I'll talk about a little bit about them, but I'm not gonna spend too much time on each of them since I've reviewed them. If you want to hear my full thoughts, you can check out my reviews, but I'm gonna go ahead and get going. Coming in at number 20 is The Nun. This is one of the movies in the Conjuring franchise, and it's easily the bottom of the barrel for me for both the Conjuring franchise and just all three of these franchises together. Although, to be honest, this one and my number 19 spot could have swapped places because I think both of them are absolute garbage movies. I can't stand either one of them, but it's kind of like picking between two turds to me. But I think this one is a little bit worse. The story is just really boring. The characters are forgettable. And there just wasn't really anything fun about this movie. I had no interest in it. And I know people who are actually fans of The Conjuring even say that this is one of the worst ones. And I can't stand The Nun. I think it was really, really dumb and really boring. So it's number 20. And number 19 is Exorcist 2: The Heretic. I liked Linda Blair in this movie. That's really the only thing about this movie that was good. It's cool getting to see her in this movie again, but after that, there ain't really anything else I can say about it. I hated the story. I hate how they just totally ruined the mystery and stuff of the first movie and everything. I had wanted to see what they were going to do with the franchise after it for a long time, and I had heard that this movie was bad and everything, but it really is one of the worst horror sequels of all time. And like I said, this one could have switched with The Nun and everything. It's just that bad. It's a terrible movie. The only good thing about it was Linda Blair. I thought she was good in it. Everything else sucked. I hated this movie. And The Exorcist, out of the three of these movies, it's the one that I don't felt like needed any sequels. Like the Exorcist franchise, to me, is one of the most pointless franchises out there and everything. The first one is such an iconic masterpiece that anything that was going to follow it was going to pale in comparison. But this one wasn't even just a step down from the first movie. It was like jumping over the steps to get over, if that makes sense. This is just a garbage sequel. I absolutely hated it, and I'll never watch it again. When I did my giveaway for my 300 subscribers, I gave away the Exorcist franchise except for the first movie, so that should say something. But yeah, I really don't like this movie, so it's number 19. And number 18 is The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. This is the newest movie in the franchise, and it could change. This could have changed and stuff if I rewatch it. I just don't have any desire to rewatch it. I got it a couple months ago and just haven't rewatched it. I found it on eBay for $7.99, like right after it first came out, so I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and get it, but I never did have rewatched it yet. It was just like with the first two Conjuring movies. I felt it was really boring, and I didn't like a lot of the stuff in it. I don't really like the Warrens and stuff because I felt like they were full of crap and stuff, so I just don't really have much interest in the Conjuring movies, with the Warrens especially. But this one was just not very good. Even compared to the first two, which I'm not a huge fan of, I still thought this was a big dip in quality. So it's number 18, and number 17 is The Exorcist: The Beginning. This is one of two prequels to The Exorcist that were made. That it was kind of like with the Snyder Cut, where there were two different directors. One was brought in by the studio. This one being Rennie Harlan. He was brought in by the studio to make it feel more like an Exorcist movie, because the studio didn't like what Paul Schrader was doing with his prequel, and I didn't really like this one very much. It had some okay moments and stuff, but I will say that I did like the visuals and stuff at the end of it, like the makeup effects on the demon and everything was pretty good. But personally, I much prefer Dominion. I'm one of the few that do, but I didn't really like this movie very much and everything. But I will say that, what's his name? I can't remember his name. The guy that plays Father Mayor, Stellan Skarsgård. I do say his performance was alright. Nothing great, but he was okay in this movie. I think he was much better in Dominion, but this one was just okay. But it's not really anything special, and it's forgettable. I don't really remember anything hardly about it except some extremely bad CGI hyenas and a cool looking demon girl at the end of the movie. And that's really the only things about it that I remember. So The Exorcist: The Beginning is number 17, and number 16 is Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension. This movie I think is pretty bad. I don't know that I'd say it's as bad as some people say it is, but I just did not like this movie very much. Them showing the demon throughout the movie is really what hurt it. One of the things I love about the Paranormal Activity franchise is you don't really see them and stuff, and I think that really kind of hurt this movie. But the franchise was starting to take a dip in quality anyway, so it didn't really do a lot different on this. But this movie, it was okay. It was a pretty bland and boring way to end the franchise and everything, but it was what it was. Luckily we got Next of Kin to bring it back and breathe new life into it, and you'll see that much higher on this list. But The Ghost Dimension is okay, but it's easily my least favorite out of the Paranormal Activity franchise, and it's number 16. And number 15 is The Conjuring, the original one. So go ahead and start sharpening your knives and pitchforks, because I know y'all are going to come at me for this, but I really don't like the Conjuring movies. I never have. I thought the first one was alright when I saw it the first time, and then every time I've rewatched it, I've liked it even less. I think it's just one of those movies that once you see it, it's just not very good on any rewatch and everything. It has some good things about it. Like I said in my reviews, I love James Wan's directing. He's a really great director, and he did a good job with that, and it does have a good atmosphere and stuff. It's just, to me, it's really boring. It takes too long to get to where it's going, and the ending just isn't as good. It kind of feels a little bit rushed towards the end of it, and just isn't a very good movie. So I didn't really enjoy it very much. So The Conjuring is number 15, and number 14 is The Conjuring 2. This one I think is a little bit better than the first one. It had some more fun moments, but it's like with the first one, James Wan's directing is great in here. I think I liked his work on the first one a little bit better though, but this one's still good. It has some good moments in here. The Nun, I think, is better in this movie than she was in her own movie and everything, but it's not a super great movie. It has some good moments, although I think my favorite scene in the entire franchise is in this movie is when Ed Warren is singing along to the Elvis song and stuff for the family. I did like that scene. That was a nice little scene and everything. And I think the casts were still good in here. It's not something that's really that interesting. Like I said, I don't really care for the Warrens stuff. I never really have, and that kind of plays a part in it too. This movie, it's just okay. It has its moments and stuff. I do like that they kind of went the route where a lot of people are suspicious about whether the Warrens are telling the truth and stuff, and they got called out for being the scammers that they are. But by the end of the movie, it isn't good. But it had its moments. So The Conjuring 2 is number 14, and number 13 is Annabelle. So pretty much from The Conjuring 2 to number 9, these are movies that I think are just alright. I don't think they're super great, but I think they're alright. So Annabelle is one of those that I think is alright too. I didn't really like it at all when I saw it the first time. I was actually really disappointed in it, and it kind of just made me not want to see any more in the franchise and everything. But on this rewatch, I actually liked it quite a bit more. I wouldn't say I loved it, but it was more entertaining than I remembered and everything. And I personally feel like the next Annabelle movie kind of makes this one a little bit better and everything. Annabelle Creation kind of makes this movie a little bit better, and I prefer the Annabelle trilogy over the Conjuring trilogy any day. But I wouldn't say it's a super great movie, though. It still has a lot of flaws and problems, and could have been a lot better than it was, but it's alright. So Annabelle is number 13, and number 12 is Paranormal Activity 4. This is one that a lot of people didn't like when it first came out. When it first came out, I actually loved it, but I watched it by itself without watching the other movies in the franchise when I watched it the first time, and then this time when I rewatched it for the first time since then, I had previously watched all of the others, and I was like, dang, this movie really does pale in comparison. And I really do get why people didn't like it as much. This is where the franchise really started taking a big dip in quality and everything. And even though I thought 3 was a step down from 2, I will say that this is an even bigger step down. It just isn't as good. It has some good moments. I think that Catherine Newton, who plays the main character in this, is pretty good. She gives a pretty good performance and stuff. This was one of her first big movies and everything. She'd later go on to star in Freaky, which was a really awesome movie. She was in Detective Pikachu, and she's becoming she's an actress that could become pretty big, hopefully. Maybe we'll have to see how she does and stuff. But I thought she was fine in this movie. She was one of the highlights. And I think out of all the main characters in this franchise, she's one of my favorites, to be honest. But it's not one of the best movies in the franchise, though. As much as I like her, the movie itself just is not super great, and it doesn't really go anywhere. They don't really do much with this franchise with the story after this one, really. I mean, it kind of introduced the Coven of Witches and stuff, but that's really the only thing it did, and they don't do a whole lot with it, so it kind of just doesn't really have much to do with it, so it's just okay. So Paranormal Activity 4 is number 12, and number 11 is The Exorcist 3. I know a lot of people actually love this movie and say that it's the only good sequel in the Exorcist franchise, but to me, none of them were really that good. I really didn't care for this one very much. The big saving grace on it, though, is Brad Dourif. He gave a really great performance in this movie. I loved him in here, and if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't remember anything about this movie. It undid the ending of the first one, just like the second one did, except it takes it in a different direction, following a different character, the one that was supposed to be dead at the end of the first one, and to me, it just kind of ruined the movie for me, and I didn't really like this one very much. I know there's a director's cut that I've heard is supposed to be a lot better. We'll see, I don't know, but I did not care for The Exorcist 3 very much. I think it's kind of overrated, to be honest. Like I said, Brad Dourif is great, but he's great in everything he's in, so, but yeah, The Exorcist 3 is number 11, and number 10 is Paranormal Activity 3. This is a prequel to the prequel of the first one, and I thought this one was a pretty decent little origin story showing like how the girls were connected to this demonic entity and everything, and this is the first one that kind of starts to show the witch coven and stuff, but it doesn't really get explored a lot more until Paranormal Activity 4 and the marked ones, but it had some good moments, and that ending though is brutal when the dad gets killed. It makes me cringe every time. It's just so brutal, and I love that it like doesn't have that happy ending and stuff, which none of them really do. That's one thing I love about this franchise. It's that you feel like there's stakes in them, like all the other two franchises, especially The Conjuring. There are no stakes in it at all, and everything. In this one, in these movies, you know some of these main characters are going to be dead by the end of the movie, partially because they're prequels, and partly because these demons are violent and stuff. So I like Paranormal Activity 3. It's just not one of my most favorites, but it did have a really great scene. The Bloody Mary scene when they're in the bathroom is one of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise and stuff. So it's number 10, and number 9 is Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist. Pretty much the Paul Schrader's cut of Exorcist at the beginning. And I personally like this one a lot more. It is a lot slower paced and more character driven, but I like that about the movie more. I think that Stellan Skarsgård's performance was a lot better in this one, and out of all the other Exorcist stuff aside from the first one, I felt like this one was pretty decent compared to those. I don't think it's a really great movie by any means, but it's good enough. So Dominion prequel to The Exorcist is number 9, and number 8 is Annabelle Creation. This is one that I was actually kind of looking forward to because I had heard so much good about it. I know a lot of people who didn't like the first Annabelle movie had kept telling me, you need to see that one, even if you're not a fan of the franchise. And I found out that David F. Sandberg had directed it, so I was like, I'm going to give it a shot because I loved his work on Lights Out, which is, to me, a really, really great PG-13 horror movie that does the atmosphere really well. And then he also directed Shazam, which is one of my favorite DCEU movies. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. That way I can be caught up on all the movies he's directed so far. And this one was, even though it is my least favorite he's directed, I do think it is a decent little origin story for Annabelle. To me, it makes the one we got from 2014 a little bit better. It just is it ties things really well together at the end of it, and kind of the way that Paranormal Activity does that with their prequels and stuff, and where they tie it into other parts of the franchise or some of the other movies. So that, I will say that was pretty good, but it's just not one of my, I wouldn't say it's one of my most favorites, but pretty much from this one up are ones that I think are at least pretty good movies and everything. So Annabelle Creation is number 8, and number 7 is Annabelle Comes Home. This one I did not expect to like at all. I saw the trailers a million times in the theaters, and the trailers gave away the entire movie, so I was like, this movie's probably not going to be very good. I already know everything that's going to happen in it, but I still found it enjoyable. I think the lead characters were really kind of likable in this movie, and I think that's part of what made it work so good. and everything. And Ed and Lorraine Warren are in this movie, but they're not in it very much, so they don't ruin the movie for me like they do with the Conjuring franchise, because most of it is set at their house and stuff with their daughter and her babysitter and babysitter's friend, or being terrorized by Annabelle. But it has some good moments and stuff, but it's not a super great movie. It's just fine for what it is. So Annabelle Comes Home is number 7, and number 6 is Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin. This is the newest movie in the franchise. It just came out a couple weeks ago, and I really enjoyed this one. I really don't get the hate. I know it's been getting a lot of hate. A lot of people don't like it, but I really enjoyed it. I love the Amish setting, and that they really tried to do something different with this franchise. They brought it back, and this is a good way to reboot a franchise and take it in a new direction. I don't know if it'll ever really have a lot of connections to the other franchise films in the franchise. I know there were a little bit of tiny connections to it, but I'm curious to see what they do with it if they continue on. And the lead character in here, Margot, I think is a really likable character. She's one of my favorite characters in the franchise. Her and Catherine Newton's character from the fourth one, I liked both of them a lot, and they were both really great leads for their movies. And this one, I really liked her in it, and the cinematography is gorgeous in this movie. It doesn't feel like a Paranormal Activity movie, even though it still is a found footage movie and stuff. They're using like regular or like more updated digital cameras, probably phone cameras and stuff, but I think it's still really a good movie and pretty underrated. So it's number 6, and number 5 is The Curse of La Llorona. This is the only movie in the Conjuring franchise that I would say I legit love. I think it's just a really great movie. It has a great cast in here, especially Linda Cardellini and everything. I think this movie is super underrated. It's not even really meant to be part of the Conjuring franchise. They just put that on the poster and stuff to get people to want to see it because they knew it was going to flop and everything. And it isn't like a super great movie, but it does have a good story. And as a kid, I knew the story of La Llorona because of some of my mom's friends had told me and her kids the story of La Llorona, so I was familiar with the subject matter that it was based on and stuff. So I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really entertaining, and everything. It does have some bad jump scares though, like the jump scares in this are really terrible. Not quite as bad on the level as The Nun, but I can't deny that, which that is one of the biggest criticism people have with it. But I actually really do care about the characters in this movie too, so it's the one thing that the Conjuring franchise doesn't really do. I don't really care about the characters throughout most of the movies in this franchise, but this one I actually did, and it's easily my favorite out of the Conjuring movies. So it's number 5, and number 4 is Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones. This is the one movie in the franchise that when I was revisiting all the other ones was the only one that I hadn't seen all the way through. And it's directed by Christopher Landon, who has gone on to direct Happy Death Day 1 and 2 and Freaky. And I love his movies that I've seen. I haven't seen everything. I know he's done a few other ones and everything. I'd like to catch up on them, but I love his work, and he does a really good job with this movie. The characters are really good in here, especially Jesse, the main character. He's another one of my favorite main characters in the franchise. He's probably my second or third favorite, and I love the story in here. And like this is pretty much a kind of a spin-off movie. It's not really directly involved in the other movies, but they do connect it to them at the end of the movie, which I thought was done really well. It really surprised me how they did this movie, and I personally think it's really underrated and stuff. But yeah, so Paranormal Activity: The Marked Ones is number 4, and number 3 is Paranormal Activity 1. This is a movie that I used to not really like very much. I didn't hate it when I saw it the first time. I thought it was just really mediocre and very disappointing because I was like super anticipating it when I finally did get to see it and everything. But rewatching it for the first time in 10 years, I really enjoyed it this time around. It's really a good movie. I love the atmosphere in it, and it's the one that kind of brought the found footage movies into popularity again for a while, and kind of also sparked the interest in demonic possession movies too. That was a big craze back then. Now we're kind of going more in a direction of cult movies now too. I've noticed here in recent years, which I personally prefer cult movies over demonic possession movies anyway. But this movie did kind of sort of franchise it would later go into cult stuff too, which I thought was kind of weird. But Paranormal Activity is a really great franchise starter and everything. Even though it wasn't intended to be a franchise, it could have been a great one and done. If they would have used that alternate ending, we probably would have never gotten sequels and stuff to this movie. But I thought it was still really good and everything, and it's easily in my top 3, so it's number 3. And number 2 is Paranormal Activity 2. I absolutely love this movie. It's the only Paranormal Activity movie I saw in the theater, and that might play a big part into why I like this one so much. But I really like the family in this movie a lot. Like the family is the sister of Katie from the first movie, and it's her husband, their baby, and daughter. And I love all of the characters in here, especially the daughter. There's just something about her. She's really likable and everything. And I love like the sense of dread this movie has throughout the whole movie, because you know things are going to get bad because we're the first one in. I love how they like end their problem, or they think they've ended everything, and the big twist that connects it to the first one, which was really insane. And then how everything just ends at the way the movie ends is just crazy and everything. And I absolutely love this movie. It's easily my favorite in the franchise. So Paranormal Activity 2 is number 2, and coming in at number 1 is The Exorcist. This movie is just such a great movie. It's to me, it's a masterpiece. One of the greatest horror movies of all time. It's one of those that if you're a fan of horror movies, it's a must-watch, especially if you're a fan of the demon possession and more paranormal movies and stuff. But every movie that I've ranked in this video under this one pales in comparison. Like, this is just such a great iconic movie, and the cast in here are all excellent. Ellen Bernstein, Linda Blair especially, and Max von Sydow. All of the cast, they're just all great in this movie, and I absolutely love the Exorcist. It's just a really great story, and it's one of those that when I saw it for the first time, I thought it was overrated, but the more and more I watch it, every time I watch it, I love it a little bit more. And I really do get why people love this movie as much as they do. Like I said, the only complaint I have with this, which I kind of have with all of the movies that I ranked in here, is it does have pacing issues, but that's just something I think comes with demonic possession movies and stuff, or haunted house movies. They all have pacing issues and stuff. They don't really pick up till the third act, but this one, I still enjoy it though. I love the characters, and I love how they flesh them out and stuff, make you care about them as the movie progresses and stuff. So it takes its time to get to where it's going, but once it gets there, man, it is awesome and everything. And sometimes it's unintentionally hilarious to me, but at times also it is creepy too, so it works. So to me, The Exorcist is easily the best out of all these movies and everything. So let me know in the comments how how you would rank these movies if you want. If you don't want to do that, tell me your favorite and least favorites, or you can tell me your favorites from each franchise, however you want to do it. And hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.